Herman, welcome. And before we start speaking about the 1980s, I'd like to go back a bit further than that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, Question I'm sure you've been asked: which are the bands and musicians which made the biggest effect on you as a youth when you were growing up?
For me, definitely Led Zeppelin. This was my favorite band. Of course, before this, even the Yardbirds. So it became, as you know, later Zeppelin. And so for me, I was always influenced by British musicians. That was a decision where I made the decision in 1971 to move to England. A lot of musicians wait for me, but nobody obviously was waiting for me, coming from Germany at that time.
Yes, indeed. You were telling me earlier on you moved to London in the early 1970s. It seems a lot of musicians were from all over Europe were moving to London back then. What was the scene like
Well,
in
for
London?
me, the English scene was always the scene that interests me. Good rock. We had in Germany at that time only Krautrock. Okay, the only Krautrocks ones were Kraftwerk, fahren on the Autobahn. But this was never my music. It was to me too not professional enough. It didn't rock enough. So I was always orientated myself on Zeppelin and bands like this. They made me think this is the kind of music I wanted to play. So the choice was in the end, we didn't find anybody in Germany, so then I moved to England. And in England, nobody waited for me either. The first band I had in England was called Vineyard. And Vineyard only played on the weekends, Friday, Saturday. They played in schools and student homes, and places like this. So we each walked away with 30 or 40 pounds a night. And when I came here in 71, by about 72, I got a gig to Melody Maker with Vineyard, and I played with them Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to keep my head above the water, so to speak.
In fact, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, the band you were playing with had a certain David Harris Cooper on guitar, I believe, and
Yeah,
Gary Shee on bass, right?
this was also bad. We didn't even have a name. What we did, we just started to write songs together and play together. We got on really well. Lee Jackson at one time was also our bass player. But as you know, Gary Shee he's now in Alcatraz. Did you know that?
Of course. Gary Shee, years later, he formed Alcatraz with Yngwie Malmsteen and other musicians.
Exactly.
And how important was that phase for you in learning how to write songs in playing as a drummer?
Well, for me, the most important, when I joined the Scorpions on the 18th of May in 1977, they came here and played at the Marquis Club 3-4 months before, and then they made an audition at the Sound Circus. I don't know if you still know the Sound Circus. It's in Holborn. It was in Holborn.
Sound Circus, okay.
And Michael Schenker at that time played already with UFO, had already hits in England, Doctor, Lights Out, all this stuff. So one day we met at the Marquis Club, and he said to me, my brother has a band in Germany called the Scorpions. I know their drummer wants to leave. He wants to go back to teaching. He was a teacher before. Why don't you go and talk to my brother and offer him your services? I think you would fit very good in this band. So I met Rudolph first in the Marquis, and later we went on to the Speakeasy. And then he said to me, tomorrow we do an audition at the Sound Circus in Holborn. Why don't you come and play? So then I came, but he didn't tell me there's another 50 drummers there, all for the audition. So then he stood on stage and he said to us all, yeah, we're going to play 3 songs with you each. Don't call us, we call you. So most of those drummers, they played only 1 song with them. Then they said, thank you for coming. Don't call us, we call you. I was lucky. I played 3 songs with them, and then they said to me the same thing, thanks for coming. Don't call us, we call you. The next morning at 10 o'clock, they called me. Rudolph called me and said, yeah, we decided to take you to be our new drummer. Can we come over to you now and pick up your drums? I said, are you crazy? I said, I have a girlfriend here, I have to settle things here before I leave to Germany. Do you have work in Germany? Yeah, I've got plenty of things, To make a long story short, when I arrived in Germany, there was not 1 gig, okay?
So
when I came to Germany...
So you actually got to know the guys of the Scorpions in London?
I met them in London. I met them first. I saw them at the Marquis Club. Then I went to audition for them the next day at the Sound Circus. I got the gig, and about 3 weeks later, I arrived in Hanover on May the 18th. I don't forget the date because on that day, Klaus Meine, our singer, he got married the same day, you know.
Okay.
So then, a week later on, we started to rehearse for the new album, Taken by Force, which started to be recorded on the 16th of August in the same year. But then it was still with Uli Voss, so we still had two directions in the band, the Hendrix direction and obviously the melodic rock direction from Klaus and Rudolf, you know. And when they said to me, what do you think of the band? I said, I seen two bands. I said, I've seen a Hendrix band, and then I see a band who plays direction foreigner melodic rock more, you know, and that's you. know, said, if I join you, we should make a direction. We should go one way, you know, not two ways, you know. And they listened to me, so we became more melodic hard rock band.
Excellent. And of course, you recorded a number of successful albums with the Scorpions, especially the album Blackout, which was probably the album which opened, you know, the doors.
It was the first platinum album in America, you're right. I wrote a lot of lyrics on that album. The title track was mine, Blackout, the lyrics on there, so on and so on. So for me, Dynamite and all those songs, you know, Arizona, you know, this is all my lyrics on there.
And did it feel before the album came out? Did you have the feeling that you have a, you know, a great album on your hands?
Yeah. I had the feeling, you know, that we had. Don't forget, we started already touring in America the first time in '81, you know, and then we started in Cleveland. And I remember the first tour we were opening band for AC/DC. A year later, we were then special guest in the opening band was Def Leppard, you know, on that tour. That was Lieber Krebs. They had also Aerosmith in their rooster and also Ted Nugent. So for us, it was a perfect start in the United States. We could open up for all those bands. Most of the times we played big arenas, 20,000 seaters, and we started at 7:30 or something like this because we were not allowed to play longer than 40 minutes then.
I remember seeing on television the reporting on the festival of US '83. You remember that?
Yeah.
Well, what do you remember of you know, facing those type of crowds?
Oh no, you told me about the San Bernardino Festival, 1983, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Where Van Halen was the headliner that night. We were also special guests. Before us was Quiet Riot, Motley Crue. Was before us.
Ozzy, I believe.
And Ozzy, yes, you're right. Ozzy also. But I think with Randy Rhoads even in the band still, right?
Yes, it must be. Yes, '83. He was alive. Yeah, that's right.
Great guitar there.
Anyway, so then you left the Scorpions, and I noticed at exactly the same time that you left, the producer Dieter Dierks left.
No, much later. We split with Dieter at the end of 1988 because simply the contract was running out, and the next producer then was Keith Olsen. Keith Olsen did the next album, Crazy World, and on the album Crazy World is the fourth song, is Wind of Change, which became a huge hit. It was a ballad, obviously, but it was not typical Scorpions, you know. It was also a political statement, and it came in after we played '89. We played the Moscow Music Peace Festival. You remember?
This was the time when the Berlin Wall was coming down, right?
We played there. We played there on the 12th and 30th of August, 1989. On the 9th of November, 1989, the wall came down. I never forget it. I was sitting in a hotel, in the Warwick Hotel in Paris, looking TV, and I suddenly see the wall falling down, and I go, what's happening? And then I knew that that they made an agreement at the time, as you know, President Reagan and President Gorbachev. They were later in our video, Wind of Change, shaking hands, those two, you know. It's still there. You can see it on YouTube.
Yes, it's interesting because, you know, coming to the album we have prepared, which is soon going to be released, What About Love? You know, when I saw the cover, the first thought that crossed my mind was the Berlin Wall. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me the story about the artwork before you describe the album. The photo.
What About Love is for me very, when I toured in the 80s, as you know, many tours in America, and I always liked the band Heart, you know, and Heart had a huge hit with this one in the 80s. It was, I think, 3 months #1, What About Love, you know. And when I saw 3 years ago when the war started in Ukraine and everything, and I can see now how we all changed, you know, everybody now is full of hate. And I said to myself, we have to remind people again about love, you know. So then I got in contact also with Howard Lees, who is the original guitar player from Heart. I told him that I would like to make a statement about love that I think is more very important. And he said, oh, please let me be also part of this statement. The same thing I was told by Bob Daisley from Black Sabbath, the bass player, and then Dan Huff, who is a great session musician, also a great producer. As you know, Face Hill also, he played with Michael Jackson. He was also the guitar player for Whitesnake on Here I Go Again. So that was one of the reasons also why I took the song, because we made many tours with Whitesnake also, as you know. I made, this was also for me a personal thing, because John Jett, for example, was the opening act for us in the 1984 European tour. So every night I hear, I love rock and roll, and I go, yeah, that's the song you have to do, you know. And we did 2 songs from Heart. We have another one on there, because my girl can sing really good. It's the Streams, you know. And I had a very close friendship with Robert Palmer. So he came to Monaco many times to visit me, and I visited him in Milano, where he lived at that time. So for me, it was an honor to do Addicted to Love. And every time I hear it, I go, hi, Robert, you know, because this were my friends at that time. So also we did many festivals with Foreigner, and I always hear the song then, you know.
While you were with the Scorpions, of course.
Yeah.
So basically, these are songs that were on the radio while you were playing drums with the Scorpions, basically.
Right, exactly, yeah. That were my golden years, too. The 80s were my golden years, literally speaking. It showed, because my message here is to all the fans out there, and also to the world, really. What is the point of hate? Hate is not going to bring us anything. We're heading towards an atomic war right now if we're not careful, because we have only idiots around us who can't wait to push the button, you know. And I'm saying, what for? There is no winners in the atomic war. Are you guys all crazy? There is, even if you have a bunker at home, you sit in the bunker for 5 years and eat tins for 5 years, and then you open the loop, you're dead immediately. That's it, over. Radioactivity is the name of it. So maybe up in the brain, or what happened here, you know? Explain it to me. I like to learn.
Indeed, and maybe music will be the way to bring us all together.
The last time it was the Moscow Music Peace Festival, you know, we got everybody in Russia convinced it's better to be together than being apart and each making wars against each other. This was the message then, and we won it, you know. Everybody was convinced, yeah, it makes no sense to go back into the Cold War, which we had then, as you know.
This was the Moscow Peace Festival, which you used in the Worldwide Live album, I believe, right?
Yeah, no, we can see the whole thing on YouTube. But the bands who played there was John Bon Jovi at the time from America, Motley Crue from the States, from your country, it was Ozzy Osbourne, you know. Then from Russia, it was Gorky Park, it was us from Germany, and it was Cinderella also played there, you know. So I think also Skid Row, you know, was there. Sebastian Bach. So I think there was a very strong bill, it was a very strong message, and we were all on the same line, you know. I don't know if it is even possible today to do something like this. I don't think they wouldn't even let us into the Soviet Union.
Probably not, no.
With a message like this, I would doubt it, you know.
It's a shame that it didn't last very long, the hopes.
No. Yeah, well, for me, it was a big disappointment, because we really hope that we can change something with music. We did change, you know, at least the language of music made the people as crazy as in America or in England in a rock concert. But when I saw the soldiers, there was 1,000 soldiers there who built a human field so people don't get too crazy. When I saw them throwing their heads in the air and dancing and singing along our music as Russians, I know it will not be taking long before they also join the West and the capitalism and live our way of life, you know. And exactly that happened, you know. My album is a tribute to the 80s because I think it was the best time for music. We had the strongest songs, the strongest hits. All those songs you can still play in 100 years. They will be played all those times. As a song like I Want to Know What Love Is, for example, is the best hymn I ever heard from any band, you know. And so I took it in the show. And also, you know, What About Love is a great ballad, you know. And I took also a drum song in my album since I am a drummer. I said to myself, you have to put it in the air tonight. You remember the fill?
Yes, 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 yes.
I said to myself, this has to be in there. So I started the album actually with this song.
So that
What
was
is,
the first song you started working on.
yeah. Is this, what is your favorite song then on the album from all the 12 songs I put on there?
Probably the one of Joan Jett I liked a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
that song brings back many memories for me. So for
I
me,
love, oh yeah, for me too. And I'm gonna play this show when I play a show, a live show. I'm gonna have, this will be my last song in the concert.
in fact, that was my next question. Do you plan? Are you planning some live shows to promote the album?
Yeah, it depends really if any of those songs is a chart hit again. If I don't have a hit, I'm not going to go out. For what? Play 100 people? No. Waste of time.
Okay, hopefully it will all go well.
Well, I have enough hits anyway, so don't worry.
Speaking about live shows, I know you, just a quick question about, you went back with the Scorpions in 2006 for the Wacken Festival.
Yeah.
What was that like? And are you still in contact with the band apart from Michael Schenker?
Yeah, well, Michael and me, we go back, we played 6 years together again from 2010 to 2016, you know.
In his
And
band, yeah?
and then when they fired James Kodak, yeah, I wrote an email to Klaus, to Rudolf, and to Matthias, and I said, "What about let's go back together again, do some work again?" Not even an answer, nothing. I thought that was very rude, and I said to myself, "Okay, that means a definite no, you know. So fuck you, you know. This is my answer."
Shame. Okay.
No, it's dumb. Not a shame. It's dumb, more than dumb, you know.
It's
When
a
I
shame. I'm sure the fans would have loved that.
not only this, when I was in the band had hits. I wrote a lot of beautiful lyrics, over 35 songs, you know. All this,
Absolutely.
also the producer, Dieter Dirks, if you want to make an album like Blackout, what they said about the last album, I said to Rudolph, this has nothing to do with Blackout. I said, Blackout is a killer album. Your album is a piece of shit, you know. Why can you do this? Why don't you get me back in the band and Dieter Dirks as a producer? Then I make you another Blackout album, you know. It was
Yeah.
my time.
Although the last album of the Scorpions, what was it called? I can't remember. It was quite good. I quite liked it, I think.
That was not the standard I expected, you know. It's for me, it's when we made albums with the Scorpions, and you have them all, they were all on a very high standard, so every song had to be good, you know. And I don't want to have an album with just one song good and all the others are so, you know.
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, for me, after you left, I sort of stopped following the Scorpions for
Like
many
you,
years.
many, but I stopped them too.
So, I mean, I've exhausted all the questions I have. Herman, what are your plans? I mean, apart from the potential live shows, is there anything else you have?
Well, no, at the moment I have no plans for this. I will see how this goes. Obviously, I promote it now on TV. I promote it on all the channels, like people like you. So for me, I will see what happens now, you know. If I go in the charts, then I can think about going live on the road, you know, because then I know there's, let's say, 1 million or 2 million people waiting for me out there, you know. But if nobody makes a reaction, then it's for me no point to go out. What for? If I cannot convince the people with my album, I'm not going to convince them live. You saw us play live with the song "Love Is a Battlefield." You saw the performance, yeah, at the video. You have to.
I don't think I saw it. The love is.
Go to my website hermanrarebell.com. You can see 2 videos. The first one is "What About Love," and the second video just came out last week. It's "Love Is a Battlefield," and just go to hermanrarebell.com. And you can see it right now.
I'll try and put the links in the video when I edit it up.
Okay.
And what about original material? Are you writing your own music?
I have about 200 songs laying in my wardrobe here, which I have still to record. They're all written, the lyrics are written, the music is written, you know. And I will see, you know, if this album is a huge success, then it makes sense to make the next album, you know. But I want to know how many of my fans are still out there, how many of them are still alive, you know, what reaction they have to this album, you know. I can come up with the next album, own songs again, you know. But this time was a thank you to the 80s, thank you to the bands of the 80s who created this music, and thank you also to my great theater for letting me live this life in the 80s with all those great bands and played with them in many festivals. And that's why I picked these songs, because I have also a personal reason for this, you know. It was the best time for me musically, the 80s, I have to tell you.
And as a fan, for me, I agree with you. And the best music was
Yeah.
back then in the 80s. Herman, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I hope the album goes on well.
Thank you very much, you know. Work with, take care, and I hope to see you on a tour then.